You won the Munk debate. You and Douglas Murray. Yeah, you won.
You won.
Yeah, I think it would have been ugly without Douglas. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
I consider him a kind of modern day William F. Buckley in a lot of respects. But you were up against Malcolm Gladwell and Michelle Goldberg on the resolution that the mainstream media should not be trusted. You swung the audience 39%. They started out against you. That was a Canadian audience. So, yeah, that's an impressive feat up there to have swung them over to your side on that question. Gladwell seemed to have only one argument for you. Because the news business of the past that you compare favorably, more or less, to the current model was less diverse, you're actually expressing a nostalgia for a whiter industry, even though I don't think a lot of people know this. You're actually mixed race yourself. It's something you never pull that card, but I'm going to. So why do you think he chose that argument rather than to take on your basic premise that the news business has become too much business, not enough news? And did you actually find it a hopeful sign that the audience saw through what he was doing and swung to your side?
Yes. But look, it's the same issue that we were talking about with Trump. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to sit there, and Malcolm Gladwell just swung the audience toward us by being totally unlikable. And this is a feature of that kind of person now.
Right.
When they reveal themselves, when they reveal who they really are, the inside is not terribly attractive to audiences, and you just can't have that. Again, like you have to show a little bit of yourself to audiences to make them trust you. And if when you do that, people recoil like they're in a zombie movie, that's maybe a hint that something's going awry with your approach, I think. But yes, I think people are beginning to make better decisions about that. And we weren't saying that you have to get rid of the mainstream media,
right?
But I think it needs some healthy competition, and it's getting it because people they finally, I think, are getting over this conditioning that says that the only thing that's a fact comes from these places, despite the fact that that's been drilled home to them in part by these organizations that we're looking at now in the Twitter files.
Yeah, and they get to hear a perspective that they wouldn't hear, right? I mean, when an audience in a room gets to hear you and Douglas give the counter narrative to what they're saying, most people buy it because most people have common sense. But so many people just never get to a point where they even hear anyone articulate a case against mainstream media. All they consume is mainstream media. This gets a lot into your Loudoun County reporting, which Russell wants to ask you about before you go. But Russell, you had one other question about that debate, did you not?
Yeah. Do you consider it a sign of the times that your co-debater here was Douglas Murray, who most people would consider a right-winger, whereas maybe 20 years ago, your partner would have been somebody more on the left? And the people that you're debating this with are people who would be considered by most, not by us, but by most, to be left or liberal.
I guess I think all those distinctions have become ridiculous now.
Right.
They don't really hold. And the caricatures of left and right have become totally meaningless in most popular discourse. The moment I knew that was true was when there was that call for Bernie to renounce the endorsement of Joe Rogan, who's like probably to the left of 80% of America. Honestly, if he's your idea of a fascist whose endorsement is, you're trying to win an election, by the way, and he's the most popular media figure in the country, and that's too much for you. Yeah, I mean, I think these things have become absurd. Also, the idea that everybody has to have the same set of beliefs about everything.
Right.
I don't remember that being true previously. Do you? Like, I always thought it was kind of okay for us to disagree about 6 or 7 things. Like, and now you have to have like this perfect starter kit where everybody has exactly the same views about everything, and that's weird to me too. Is it weird to you? I mean,
it is weird, especially considering like how they perceive the risks at this moment. Like if you believe that Trump is this existential threat to life on Earth, you'd think you'd want to broaden your coalition, not shrink it. I remember Greenwald tweeted out at one point, he said, the left seems to be the only political faction that seeks to become smaller. Like they actually seek to shrink in numbers, not to grow. Now, that would be weird under any circumstance, especially under a circumstance like this, where you have out of one side of the mouth, you're obsessed with, we have to beat Trump. We all have to unite and elect someone who could beat Trump. And then out of the other side of your mouth, there's all this canceling going on of people who don't subscribe to every single point on the list.
And not just canceling, but like outright final character assassination. The Jill Stein is not just wrong, she's not just Ralph Nader, she's not just an obstacle, she's a traitor to the country, who cannot be countenanced, and Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. Like they just, every one of the people that they've kicked out of the club is not just out of the club. They are unacceptable, right? And I think this is one of the things that we're going to get into. I think with the Twitter file stuff is eventually, I'm going to have to write about this, but I think the goal of a lot of these anti-disinformation movements is to push people out of the realm of even discussability. Right. Like they it's not just to smear them. We're not even going to see them. We're not going to talk about them because they've been excluded physically from the conversation. And that's happened to all of them.
I mean, Rogan is the most extreme example of that, because when you see a picture of Joe Rogan, people think he's like an Alex Jones type because he's big with the tattoos and the MMA. So they expect when they hear Joe Rogan, they're going to hear an Alex Jones type rant. And then he's this like very nice, mild-mannered, soft-spoken, almost a little shy at points.
Totally.
Almost a little timid. And they're like, wow, I did not expect that. Like, that totally doesn't fit the way the media portrays him. But you notice when they portray him, you never actually get to hear him speak. You never actually get to hear him present himself as he actually is.
Right, and also, don't you ever wonder, like, there has to be an NBC executive who at least a couple of times tunes into that show and realizes this guy's talking for an awful long time. He's not didactic. He's not talking down to people.
Right.
He's got a massive audience just by not being a dick. Like that. That's the whole thing.
Exactly.
And why can't we do that? We can't do that because why? Like that is kind of a mystery to me. I just don't get that.
Please clap.